All right, let's get to our top story now, and that is the United States is about to launch a massive military offensive against Russia in the Russian territory, according to reports this morning. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to the latest U.S. and NATO attack against Russia in a moment. But first, Russia and China just took major steps yesterday in reordering the world order, creating what many are calling a new world order. And I would argue that that's correct. When you're literally taking the world off of a U.S. reserve currency and you're shifting the entire power dynamic to Russia and China and BRICS nations, that is a new world order. And you're watching it unfold right before our eyes. This is a moment in history we'll be able to tell our children about the decline of U.S. hegemony, the rise of what we're seeing right now. And so, yeah, we had Putin and Xi Xinping, of course, with their big meetings over the past few days, saying goodbye early this morning as Xi Jinping was flying out. And they accomplished a lot. They signed a multi-part economic and military framework. They're going to use Chinese currency to settle trades instead of the U.S. dollar. Think about that for a minute. They're going to be using the Chinese yuan to settle trades instead of using U.S. currency.
Now, not only does that account for a large part of the global population because of the size of China and Russia, but they are also encouraging, and President Putin is encouraging other nations to do the same in Africa, in South America, in Latin America. Where else? He mentioned 3 different places. And so those places that are suffering from Western sanctions are absolutely motivated to try to do that. Because if you are, say, Argentina, and you would like to, continue to finish your nuclear reactors in order to get affordable energy to your people, but you are suffering from Western sanctions, and the West continues to lean on you to sanction Russia, you can say, okay, I don't need to deal with this then. I have options now. Right.
And that's the key, right, is the options for them. And regardless of how you feel about it, I mean, this is a major, major story that the West is completely downplaying. They're much more concerned about Trump being arrested than anything else. They don't even want you to know the decline of the U.S. economy right now and the banking crisis. Like, all the headlines are about storms in California, which they're big, and Trump being arrested. But never mind what's actually going on with this unipolar disaster and the multipolar rise that we're seeing. Going now, Putin and Xi, they're going to build a massive new border infrastructure. So among the 14 agreements, a new border infrastructure, which expands agricultural cooperation. They'll be improving the cooperation of exchanging energy, minerals, metals, chemicals. I mean, what else is on there on the list, for crying out loud? Right?
Things that they actually mine and control. We've done reports here about how the United States does have a lot of these resources, but environmental groups are stopping the mining of those things. And so if you want your nice electronics and smart cars and EVs, you're not going to be able to get them from American manufacturing.
We don't do any uranium mining in the United States. We have one uranium mine in the United States. One. How did that happen? Because we're idiots.
As we've reported here, the United States was pioneers in the uranium mining industry.
So we gave that away. We gave that away. This is all a man-made disaster, by the way. You can see it, right? We could have been leading that charge, but instead we're not. So metals, chemicals, minerals, they signed these 14 total agreements, including nuclear energy, with a shared cooperation of building faster neutron reactors. The governments also agreed to create a new joint television station that would share information. These guys over the past few days, like shaking hands and they seemed like they were like best friends, in these meetings. Oil exports to China have exploded. And another area of agreement moving forward is on this massive new pipeline, the Mongolian pipeline from Russia to China. So massive new oil and hydrocarbon pipeline from Russia to China.
Now, I've seen some comments online that Joe Biden made this possible because it could be interpreted that nothing brings people together like a common enemy. And as they continue to be, the butt of aggression from the United States, then, of course, they're motivated to make this work more than ever before.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And now they know they have this common threat. They are under siege, basically, right? So they see this happening with the United States aggression in the South China Sea, military bases, weapons, money into Taiwan, nuclear weapons, nuclear submarines into Australia. The list is pretty much endless. Yeah, David.
Well, I was going to say, and let's talk also about sanctions. All of these countries that know that at any moment, if they do anything outside of what we say they can do, sanctions on them, and they're going to be like, wait, we might not have to have sanctions on us anymore, because let's not, forget, sanctions are basically an act of war.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The weapons of, what was it? The sanctions of mass destruction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they also signed a new military partnership. They'll have a military exchange and cooperation program with mutual trust between their armed forces. They're also going to regularly conduct joint maritime and air patrol military exercises together. Their goal, they say, is a multipolar world order instead of a unipolar U.S.-led world order. That was this meeting. Why is this not like the lead story on every major newspaper or newscast? It's not. And a third of the third thing that they discussed was the Ukrainian peace proposal. Why is this also not one of the lead stories on the nightly newscasts? Peace in Ukraine? Why not lead your newscasts with that? Let's see if Lester Holt tonight on NBC's Nightly News leads with that story. Probably not. So they put this forth by China. China put this 12-part framework together about peace in Ukraine. Putin praised this 12-part peace plan, saying he's ready for it. But the United States and the West are not ready for peace. Here is President Putin talking about this. We have subtitles. Watch.
Что многие из положений, выдвинутого Китаем мирного плана, созвучны российским подходам и могут быть взяты за основу для мирного урегулирования, когда к нему будут готовы на Западе и в Киеве. Однако такой подход, пока такой готовности с их стороны мы не наблюдаем. В то время, когда мы с председателем обсуждали вопрос возможности реализации китайского плана мирного урегулирования, а председатель КНР уделил большое внимание своим мирным инициативам в ходе нашей вчерашней беседы с глазу на глаз. Вот сегодня стало известно, что
Yeah. So we're ready for it. You know who's not ready for it? He says the West and Ukraine. They're not ready for peace. So we'll just keep fighting till the last Ukrainian. That's been the plan, of course, all along. And then the Chinese president got on an airplane and started to fly home. They shook hands. They were caught on camera talking about how this will be the greatest change to the world in 100 years. And Putin said, I agree, my friend, and have a safe journey. Watch this.
Перемены, которые не было в течение 100 лет. Там, где вместе двигаем эти перемены. Перейдите, пожалуйста, дорогой друг.
He even walks him out to the car like he's on a date.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, get home safe, okay? Get home safe. You're my new best friend.
Text me.
Text me.
Text
Call
me
me
when
when
you
you
get
get
Didn't
back.
open the door for him.
Hey, it's Vlad. I'm up late. What are you doing? What are you doing?
He's asking his officials, when is too soon to text back?
Right. Right. Is it a little too pushy for me to keep texting early? But I mean, this is the type of relationship that we see growing. It's unbelievable to watch this. And what relationships does the United States have in this way right now? Think about the tale of two summits, right? President Biden flying into Saudi Arabia to try to push them for more oil production, right?
Yeah.
Agreements with Saudi Arabia. Instead, what did Saudi Arabia do? Turns out, we know from reports, they ended up mocking President Biden behind his back after he left. They called him like a fool. And then they turned around and basically started moving more closely with China. That's
Yes.
what Saudi Arabia did. So have a safe voyage back. So this was all happening while at the same time, the world is being upended, reordered. That's what was happening. And what was happening in Washington, D.C. while this was happening in Moscow? President Biden handing out awards to Hollywood actresses. Watch. This literally happened.
Mindy Kaling. For giving voice to a new generation of storytellers, imbued with humor and heart. Mindy Kaling's work.
Ooh, that's a short little dress with no nylons. I've been to the
I
White
hope
House
she did
too,
not
and
get
I
that.
was, and I was really self-conscious that you need to wear nylons.
So President Biden literally, I mean, handing out awards to actresses. Now, in Mindy Kaling's defense, she did defend J.K. Rowling for speaking out in support of women. The woke mob freaked out when she liked that J.K. Rowling's tweet. Remember this? People were like, what? Mindy Kaling likes this tweet? As a parent of a trans child and a non-binary child and as an admirer of yours, I hope I'm misreading that she liked a tweet by J.K. Rowling.
How dare you?
How dare you? Right.
No, but people have lost their jobs for liking J.K. Rowling's tweet.
Yeah.
It's more insidious than that.
Well, but then she also released a woke television show on HBO on this Velma remake of like Scooby-Doo thing. It's been bombed as one of the lowest rated shows ever on Rotten Tomatoes on HBO. It was called
I watched it.
Woke piece of garbage. Is it a woke piece of garbage?
Oh my God. I literally cringed the whole entire time. Didn't laugh once, but I had to watch it because I had to know what everybody was talking about. So I watched 3 episodes of it. Garbage.
So that's what the White House is doing, handing out awards for that. Like literally at the same moment in Washington. That's the priority of Washington right now with a banking crisis. I mean, an economy slipping into ruin. And this is what we're doing. Unbelievable.
Did you see the press conference that they just did where they had the whole cast of Ted Lasso behind Jean Pierre?
Yeah,
what is going on?
They bring the cast of Ted Lasso to the White House. Like, I love that show. It's a great show. What the hell?
Well, I can tell you what the hell, because what the United States is really good at is exporting culture. And, Hollywood sort of acts as a mouthpiece for why it's cool to be an American. And we are expats, so we understand how that, like, we get cool points just because of our accent from a lot of people who say, oh, I watch American YouTube, I watch American shows, I learned English from friends. Like, we do hear this a lot. And so if you can sort of double down on this as PR in a time when nothing else about your culture looks appealing, not your currency, not your economy, not your banking system, certainly not your health system.
Not your bullying through military.
Right. Not your social media censorship, not your non-scientific COVID rules. Nothing here is worth exporting except we're really good at movies and TV shows and music. Yeah. And so that's, of course, why you double down on that. It's not for nothing. It's absolutely not...
So it's propaganda.
Gratuitous.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's propaganda.
Yeah, it's total propaganda. So rather than ask tough questions at the press corps, let's bring the cast of Ted Lasso here so we don't have to take tough questions. And then you had that African reporter trying to ask questions of Jean-Pierre while the cast of Ted Lasso was in the room. And he's like, are you ever going to call on me? It's been 9 months now or 7 months. You haven't called on me. This is egregious. And the cast of Ted Lasso is kind of like standing there like, whoa, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah, we didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. I clapped for that guy.
Yeah.
Very awkward, very awkward.
And then he goes on Tucker, and then, Tucker had him on. Anyway, so the United States, while this is happening, is busy bailing out failed banks. That's what we're doing right now. And handing out awards to Hollywood actors and actresses. But the U.S. military-industrial complex is alive and well and is ready to launch a massive offensive against Russia. According to the German newspaper Bild this morning, the United States is preparing a massive strike of against new Russian territories. Their sources say that the United States and NATO forces will see the biggest strikes happening in the coming weeks against Russia. Now, if you watched our show last night, you realize we are no longer on this show saying that Ukraine is carrying out these attacks. Ukraine is done. This is the United States and NATO forces carrying out these attacks. So anytime you see the word Ukraine is carrying out attack, just scratch that out and put U.S. in its place from now on and NATO forces. So that's exactly what's happening against Russia. So while refusing to go into detail on this regarding planned operations, according to this Bild article, the official at NATO asserted that Ukrainian forces and U.S. forces, of course, led by U.S. forces, will focus their efforts on the regions of Zaporozhye and Lugansk. The U.S. will attack the land bridge to Crimea. That's good. So the United States is going to attack the land bridge to Crimea. That's the plan. The sources say that the United States sees this as a do-or-die moment for the war. Britain also getting in on this offensive. According to the UK's Defence Minister, Annabel Goldie, Britain will be sending depleted uranium shells to Ukraine. Wait, what the hell? Did you not we had a whole report on depleted uranium just a few weeks ago here on the show, and why that's a really bad idea. The UK is sending depleted uranium shells, and this isn't like a random report. This comes from the Defense Ministry of UK. This isn't like some rumor. They're admitting it. So they're going to be used in their Challenger 2 tanks. These are armor-piercing weapons that cause cancer. If you needed any more evidence that the West wants the destruction of Ukraine, then look no further. Putin responded to the UK defense minister announcing these new shell deliveries. Listen to President Putin.
Что Великобритания устами заместителя главы Министерства обороны этой страны объявила не только о поставках танков на Украину, но и снарядов с объединенным ураном. Похоже, что Запад действительно решил воевать с Россией до последнего украинца уже не на словах, а на деле. Но хотел бы в этой связи отметить, что если все это будет происходить, то соответствующим образом Россия вынуждена будет реагировать, имея в виду, что коллективный Запад начинает применять уже оружие с ядерным компонентом.
Yeah, so we will respond accordingly. So what? Nuclear war? World War III? This is what happened.
What's also so frustrating, they just talk about taking out this bridge and not even talking about like what an inconvenience that's going to be to both sides. Like they think, well, we can inconvenience Russia, but that's going to inconvenience everyone in that territory that uses that bridge.
Yeah, we're going to cut off completely that entire area. Well, the land bridge and what other, they already hit the Kursk bridge, so like, are they going to take that out again too? Just the land bridge, cutting that whole area off. People who want to be a part of Russia, they do not want to have anything to do with Ukraine. Go ahead, Philip.
I was gonna say it's the NATO is like, it sounds like they're gearing up for a scorched earth policy to save Ukraine. To save Ukraine, we're gonna burn it to the ground, cause cancer. It's blow up infrastructure.
I'm glad you're saying that because that's what it felt like to me too. Which is, so all of that eastern part of Ukraine that now Russia controls, which is the most fertile ground in the world, it's going to be totally contaminated, right? Just to put some context on this, if the UK, which talks about its green economy, right? Not only will this destroy Ukraine with this depleted uranium, but it will also be polluted for generations to come.
Yes.
Depleted uranium shells release a highly toxic powder upon impact. The radioactive dust then gets into the soil and the subsoil. This soil in eastern Ukraine, of course, is the most fertile in the world. We've talked about this extensively on the show. Even Colonel McGregor talked about how it was being literally dug up and shipped to parts of Europe because it's so fertile to being used during World War II. That's how fertile it is. And if this stuff gets in it, if this radioactive powder gets in it, game over. It also contaminates the clothes, the skin of Ukrainian citizens when it gets hit. They then in turn can carry it to other people. It becomes a transport agent. They become a transport agent of dust, which then transfers to any living thing it touches. Any person that comes in contact with it, it transfers to that person. If you wanted some more context, here's, in Iraq, radioactive weapons, estimated 286 tons of depleted uranium munitions were fired by U.S. forces in Iraq and Kuwait in 1991. 131 tons were used in the 2003 invasion. You can see the dust cloud there in the lower right-hand parts of your screen. So upon impact, it releases this secondary explosion where, where the depleted uranium turns into like a powder and a mist. So just look what happened to Iraq. I dare you guys to Google the words depleted uranium in Iraq and look at those photos, horrible photos of deformed children. You cannot unsee those pictures once you see them. We're not going to show them here on the show. You can see what the United States did there. We used an estimated 286 tons of it in Iraq. Not to mention Yugoslavia, where brain tumors among soldiers, families of soldiers in that area, in the Balkans, so many brain tumors, it's called the Balkan syndrome. Look that up. Do some research on that. If you're in England, you need to tell your government to stop this madness immediately. If there's anyone left with a brain in these places, you're going to get people killed. If that's not enough, the U.S., not to be outdone, so that's the U.K., the U.S. this morning, as part of this massive offensive, is now pressing the Biden administration for Republicans or signing a letter calling for cluster bombs to be sent to Ukraine.
Oh, these again?
Yeah. Remember, and Ukraine was asking for these. Republican lawmakers pressed Biden to send cluster bombs to Ukraine. And they signed a letter. 4 leading Republicans in Congress sent a letter to Biden urging him to provide Ukraine with cluster bombs, which of course we will then be using. It's not like Ukrainians are going to use them. There's no one
But
left.
aren't those internationally illegal?
They are, but you'll know that Ukraine and the United States have not signed that illegal, that 2008 agreement. So the United States and Ukraine can use munitions that are carried out against civilians and kill civilians. So the United States was like, no, we're not signing that agreement. We love killing civilians. And Ukraine also opted not to sign that agreement. It should be pointed out as well that Russia did not sign that agreement as well in 2008. So Ukraine can use these without technically being considered a war crime. And since the United States will be actually carrying out these attacks using cluster bombs, the United States gets away with it as well because they're not part of this agreement.
Oh, no. Well, today, Politico ran a story saying absolutely a quick study. Ukrainians master Patriot system faster than expected. So we are supposed to believe that they can read and train manuals in English, I guess, without our own participation. Like we're just telling them, this is how you use it. If you need a Zoom tutorial, we're available. That, sure, they can handle it. So we are supposed to sort of have a hands off. We can just send it to them. It's basically like a blender. So they're going to figure it out.
They'll just figure. I love that article. Yeah, we had a plan for how long it'll take you to train in our Patriot missile systems, but they exceeded our expectations. They were like weeks. They were done weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like as Scott Ritter has pointed out on the show, it takes a long ass time to learn how to use Patriot missile systems.
No, they're a quick study. It's okay.
Apparently, you can take like a Skillshare class.
Sure.
Yeah, there's just I mean the way they set it up, there's just a single button in it that says fire. That's it. That's all you got to do. You just go in, you hit the big red button, and done.
They have a parrot that
It's
does
so
that.
easy.
One of those like electronic.
Yeah, it's probably. It's like we've got the missiles 101. You're going to learn missiles. You're going to learn perfect English. You're going to lose your accent. Like it's a full course on how to basically run this like an American, as an American.
Yeah.
They are Ukrainian. Wink, wink. Sure. No, Americans are pushing the buttons on these. Don't think for a second that these are Ukrainians doing this.
Here's the quote from the commanding general of the Army's Fire Center of Excellence, Brigadier General Shane Morgan. The Ukrainian soldiers are impressive and absolutely a quick study. Like a proud parent, he is. Due to their extensive air defense knowledge and experience in a combat zone, it was easier, though it's never easy, for them to grasp the Patriot system. They are the best of the best in what they do. Just like, I'm so proud of them. Like, potty training my youngest. Like, she just really got it. It was so easy.
I love the propaganda. It's so amazing. The amount, as Scott Ritter has talked about, the amount of support involved in Patriot systems, it's no small thing. It's not like you're just sending 4 guys out to handle these things. The amount of infrastructure and support that these things entail, this is propaganda being handed to you on a plate right now. So using cluster munitions, by all accounts, would be war crimes because due to the harm they cause civilians, cluster bombs have been banned by over 100 countries under that 2008 convention on cluster munitions. But again, Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. did not sign that treaty. So the only people that have been using cluster bombs in this war, according to journalist Eva Bartlett, has been Ukraine. They've been using pedal mines, which are technically a war crime. They've been thrown, of course, in residential zones. So these are pedal mines, these little things that look like leaves on the ground, and kids pick them up because they're like, what is this? Like a fun little thing, and they pick it up and they blow their leg off. Look how the size of these things, size of a lighter, cigarette lighter, and they're mixed in with leaves on the ground. You can't tell the distance. You're walking your dog, boom, in residential zones. So, it's unbelievable. So these 4 Republicans that signed this letter, these 4 piece of shit Republicans who signed this letter need to be held in account. If any of you are in their district, you need to raise hell with them. Please write to these people. So here they are. I'm going to name names. These are the 4 people that are calling for us to use cluster munitions in Ukraine, basically against civilians. Here they are. Representative Michael McCall, who we've called out on the show before. That guy's a nut. Michael McCall, the chair of the House Foreign
from Texas.
Texas.
Let's let people know if you live in Texas, give him a ring.
Yeah, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Representative Mike Rogers of Alabama, Republican. The chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Senator Roger Wicker of MS is Mississippi, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, Mississippi. The ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and Jim Risch, R-I-S-C-H, of Idaho. He's a Republican, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They want cluster munitions used. These Republicans are...
Foreign relations.
Yeah, foreign relations. Yeah, these are how we win the hearts and minds of people. We use cluster munitions. So these Republicans are pieces of shit, and you need to let them know that. And by the way, President Biden probably will go along with this. So both of these parties are
And
corrupt.
he'll call it bipartisan.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be a bipartisan agreement. So both of these parties are corrupt. And these neoconservatives who are calling for cluster munitions need to be held to account. So get ready, because the United States is about to launch a massive offensive in the coming days and coming weeks in Ukraine. It won't be Ukrainians. It'll be the U.S. and NATO. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.